Growing up, I always felt like the invisible child. My parents constantly praised my older sibling, showering them with affection while I languished in their shadow, brushed aside like last week's laundry. The echo of my mother's laughter would fill the room whenever my sister flexed her straight A report card, though my grades, decent in their own right, barely registered, like static in the background of her accomplishments. Whenever I dared express my feelings, they would roll their eyes and say I was just jealous, a mere annoyance in the grand scheme of their favorite child's life. It was my birthday, and the house was bustling with family. In the kitchen, the smell of chocolate cake wafted through the air, mixing with the sound of clinking plates and cheerful chatter. I could hear my brother and sister laughing at something vague and inside jokes that I had never been privy to. I stood there at the edge of the living room, watching as they enveloped my sister in hugs. It stung. "Look at her, isn't she just perfect?" my mother said, her voice dripping with adoration as she fixed my sister's hair, pushing back a rebellious curl. My sister beamed, accepting the flattery like a queen ascending her throne while I hovered nearby like a ghost. And she won the debate competition again, 2 years in a row. "Oh wow," my father chimed in, his eyes sparkling with pride. "That is quite the achievement, sweetheart. You are going to get a full scholarship at this rate." I felt my stomach twist in knots. I wished I could blend in, turn invisible, fade into the walls. My heart raced as I faced my cake, which was quickly becoming a prop for my sister's latest victory. Defeated, I stepped aside, letting the crowd swarm around my sister like moths to a flame. "Happy birthday," my sister exclaimed, finally spotting me. "Are you still sulking in the corner?" "Come on, this is your day too," she said it with a faux sweetness that left me cold. "Yeah, sure." My voice cracked. I wanted to cry, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I forced a smile and joined my sister and brother, feeling the weight of their indifference. "Did you hear? Lee did not even place in the science fair," my brother taunted, trying to provoke me. Laughter erupted. It felt so familiar, so comfortable for them, but for me, those chuckles carved deeper into the hollow space where my self-worth should have been. "Stop it," my sister replied half-heartedly, though I could hear the amusement in her tone. She didn't want to stand up for me, it would have taken away from her spotlight. I turned and walked toward the dining table, laced with an array of gleaming decorations, but the sparkles felt less enticing this time. "Come on, let's cut the cake." My mother clapped her hands, eyes still shining with approval for my sister. "But first, let's hear about your final debate, Lee. I am so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom, but it's just..." My voice trailed off, heavy with words unspoken. Who cared about my opinions or my small victories? They all just wanted to bask in my sister's glow. I felt my body tense up as a rush of heat spread over my face. I did not want to play a part in this charade. "Your cake will melt if we do not hurry." My father interrupted jovially, oblivious to the tension hanging in the air. "We do not want it to go to waste." "Yeah, what a waste it would be, just like my science fair project." I muttered bitterly under my breath, still aware that I was in the audience of my sister's performance. My parents rarely noticed the little jabs that left me feeling enraged and disregarded. A sense of betrayal washed over me, an emotion I had grown accustomed to nurturing. "Lee," my brother's teasing voice broke through my thoughts. "You sure you do not want to take a backseat for the cake? Sister's the star here." "Very funny," I replied, hands shaking slightly. My every instinct told me to retreat, to hide under a blanket until the celebrations were over, until I could disappear completely and no one had to notice. The laughter spun in my ears, filling my head until I felt dizzy. Why was this happening again? I rolled my eyes, trying to drown out the noise, but it only seemed to amplify as they gathered around the table, waiting for my sister to slice the cake. My father leaned closer, his excitement brimming over, an imposing figure that felt protective, but only for my sister's sake. Did he even notice how I stood detached from it all? As my sister took her first piece, she beamed at everyone. "Come on, try it, it is the best cake ever." Cheerful voices chattered, centered exclusively on her triumphs, leaving me to simmer quietly. I could almost hear the ticking of the clock, labeling my worth with each passing second. When was it going to be my moment? "Okay, it is clear who is going to be the family favorite," my brother joked, prompting laughter that I found painfully difficult to manage. I felt my chest tighten, the bitterness rising within me. He shot me a quick glance, and a smirk danced on his lips as if he derived satisfaction from my discomfort. "How about a toast?" My father's voice boomed throughout the kitchen, lifting a glass as if declaring a universal truth. Everyone followed, but I hesitated, confused about where I belonged in this moment. "To our darling daughter, the shining star of the family, here, to many more victories and achievements ahead." Everyone raised their glasses except me. I stood still, a lone island surrounded by my family's celebration. As the chatter faded into celebratory cheers, I felt invisible, an outsider looking in, removed from the rituals that should bind us. "Well, how about Lee? What do you want to say, birthday girl?" my brother asked, as if prodding a wound. "Nothing," I said quietly, but the fear of mockery held me in place. I knew my internal turmoil would never be worthy of this bright moment. "Just cut the cake." My mother spared me a fleeting, concerned glance, but then immediately returned her attention to my sister, celebrating something my heart knew would always belong to her. My sister sliced through the cake, her joy a glimmer against my thudding heart. As the layers fell apart, I swallowed the lump in my throat, feeling the world melting around me. With each slice taken, I imagined the victories slipping away from my grasp, the burden of my existence only adding to the frosting on my birthday cake. It wasn't just confectionery, it felt like a mockery of my own life. Lee, do you want to try some? I saved the biggest piece for you. My sister called half-heartedly, my eyes meeting hers, revealing a flicker of guilt. But her radiant laughter still echoed through the room, drowning out my unspoken protest. Sure, I replied, pausing just long enough for the sting of sarcasm to swell inside me. I want the piece marked the invisible child. The words felt stronger as they rolled off my tongue, surprising even me. The room fell eerily silent for a brief heartbeat. That is childish, my sister retorted, her smile wavering as she handed me a plate. Honestly, grow up already. Did you just call me childish? I shot back, feeling a surge of anger, my heart racing at the idea that I could finally break free from being that quiet child. Enough, both of you, my father scolded. Lee, it is your birthday, let's keep this lighthearted. As I accepted the slice from my sister, I could feel the weight of the moment intensifying. My mother again insisted on turning everything back to my sister, forcing me deep into the shadows. I took a breath, steadying my shaking hands. Suddenly I felt so hyper-aware of every eye in the room, measuring my worthiness against my sister's accomplishments. I had dreamt of being acknowledged, of achieving something remarkable, but now it all felt unattainable, hidden in the folds of my sister's success. I looked down at the cake in my hand, the frosting starting to drip slowly as if mirroring my thoughts. As the evening progressed, laughter continued to surround me, but I felt increasingly boxed in, the pressure mounting inside my chest until it became too much. I couldn't take it any longer. This is so unfair, I suddenly burst out, surprising everyone. What? My mother responded, her voice sharp. Lee, what do you mean? I hesitated, sensing their eyes on me, but I needed to say it. I am always in the background while she gets all the applause. I'm standing here and it feels like I do not even exist. My father's demeanor shifted, surprise etching across his face while my mother stood imperiously, attempting to cover the crack of tension mounting between us. Stop being so dramatic, Lee, my brother chimed in, his voice tailing off into laughter, but I couldn't hold back. I am not jealous, I just want one moment, just one where I can feel like I matter. I shouted, my voice cracking. The room fell into stunned silence, my words hanging heavy in the air. It is just a birthday, my sister scoffed, but even she seemed uncertain now. No, I insisted, feeling the flush of adrenaline coursing through me. It is not just a birthday, it's a reminder of how you chose her over me every single time. My father reached for my arm gently. You really should not raise your voice like that. We can talk this out later. And just like that, I could feel the room turning against me again, my emotions spiraling downward. No, don't touch me, I spat, pulling away, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the room, rattling the glass daker. I stood in that moment, feeling an overwhelming tide of rage and sadness, a storm gathering within. I do not need your permission or anyone's. I am done feeling like I am secondary to the family's favorites. With those words, I turned, half ready to fume my way out, but the fire in me was only just beginning. And then came the realization, a spark igniting, a deep yearning for something far more powerful than being overlooked. Maybe the whispers of revenge could weave through these moments of despair, crafting a shape that would rise from my pain, but for now, I just needed to breathe. As I walked away, my footsteps resounding against the tiled floor, I slammed the door behind me, sending an echoing shockwave into the family gathering. I heard shouts behind me, voices murmuring to one another in shock as I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face like a gust of reality. I knew this was just the beginning. Making myself invisible had been all I did for years, but now I wanted a voice. I wanted more. And the thought lingered, weaving its way through my thoughts, that this was my moment to become the force they had never expected. The girl they pushed aside was finally ready to fight back. I took a deep breath, and as the wind kissed my cheeks, a new determination filled the space once occupied by hollow pain. I walked into the night, the taste of resolve on my tongue, ready to plot my next move. The warmth of the evening sun poured through the large bay windows of our living room, illuminating the small gathering of family and friends celebrating my parents' anniversary. The fragrance of freshly baked cake mingled with the scent of my mother's signature dinner. A mouthwatering aroma of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes wafted through the air, inviting everyone to indulge. Laughter danced around the room like music, a cheerful backdrop to the casual chaos that was a family gathering. Yet beneath it all, I felt cold, utterly freezing as the scene unfolded before me like a storm brewing within. I stood there, my heart beating in uneven staccato beats as my parents planned their surprise. My brother and sister were buzzing with excitement, their voices rising in pitch with every whispered secret exchanged. They swirled around the living room like golden leaves fluttering in the autumn breeze, drawing the attention of everyone present. My mother had her radiant smile on full display, the kind that could light up even the darkest corners of the world. But I could see through it. A tight smile. The glimmer in her eye when she looked at my sibling had a sheen of gold that felt so painfully unfair. "Okay, everyone, gather around. It's time for the big surprise." My father called out, the glee in his voice causing a ripple of anticipation. The world around me faded, the sound of laughter became a distant echo as I braced myself. Suddenly my brother walked in, his youthful exuberance spilling over as if he were the star of the evening. He was beaming like the sun, a gleaming keychain in hand. "Check this out." He held up a small, shiny object with the proud look of someone who had just won an award. "Is that what I think it is?" My mother gasped, her voice high with excitement, and before I could even process what was happening, she was sweeping my brother into a tight embrace. "It's my brand new car," he exclaimed, waving the keychain as if it were a trophy won in battle. "I can't believe you guys got me a $50 K ride." Joy erupted around me, a tidal wave that knocked the breath from my lungs. My sister joined in, hugging my brother from the other side, her face radiant with delight. "You deserve it," she chirped, her tone full of sugary sweetness that set my teeth on edge. In that instant, all I could feel was the strident clanging in my chest, a clock counting down to my very own breaking point. I stood frozen, my body a statue as my mind raced to make sense of the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. Why him? Why not me? I had always been the good child, the one who lent a listening ear and played the role of the obedient daughter. And yet here they were, lavishing my sibling with a gift that could transform a life, while I stood by, forgotten like a withered flower on the side of the road. "Look at it, it's amazing." My father clapped his hands, his smile so proud it might split his face. He had always favored my brother, showering him with praise and attention. My heart sank further as I recalled the countless times I had sat quietly while he basked in the recognition. Now it felt like I was standing beneath a spotlight that had been turned away, casting me into the creeping shadows. "Are you serious? That's incredible, a brand new car?" One of my mother's friends gasped, her eyes wide with envy. Cheers erupted from the gathering and the sound felt like daggers piercing my heart. "Let's take it for a spin." My brother, riled up by the adoration, rushed to the front door, barely aware of my presence. Just like that, he was off, and I was left standing there, the air still warm but suddenly suffocating. I could feel my insides twisting, a storm brewing. I fought the tide of emotions threatening to spill over, tears welled up, blurring my vision. "Isn't he the luckiest?" My mother beamed as if I were meant to echo her sentiments. But all I could manage was a weak smile, the kind that feels stretched and unnatural. She turned to me, and her gaze held an unsettling mix of pride and expectation. "You're happy for your brother, right?" I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, but instead I nodded, my heart a hollow echo of laughter. "Of course, yeah, he deserves that," I stammered, the words tumbling out like stones dropped into a deep well. I felt my throat tighten as I mustered a shaky smile, only to choke on betrayal. I was breaking piece by piece, my heart shattering like glass. "Look, he'll take us home in style now," my father added, chuckling as if the thought alone was a joke he'd been saving just for this moment. My insides twisted even tighter, a mixture of anger and sorrow bubbling in my chest. As the laughter continued to unfold like a cruel surprise, I felt the weight of family dynamics crashing down on me. My parents, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing within me, were too lost in their world of joy. Foolishly, they believed their happy family was whole. But I was anything but happy. How could they not see me standing there, drowning in their favoritism? Why did they choose him over me? I thought, a cascade of bitterness sweeping through my mind. I could almost imagine them whispering behind my back, "She'll be fine, she's always fine." Just then my sister approached, a smile plastered on her face like a carefully arranged mask. "You should be proud of him, he worked hard." Her words dripped with a saccharine sweetness that turned my stomach. "Come on. Smile with us, will you? This is supposed to be a celebration." "Right," I said through clenched teeth, fighting the urge to simply walk away and slam the door shut behind me. "A celebration? Aw, lighten up, you're such a downer sometimes," she responded, annoyance creeping into her voice. "Life is too short to be jealous." Her eyes flickered, but it was not the flicker of concern. It was a flicker of dismissal, as if my feelings were burdens too heavy for anyone else to bear. I felt a surge of anger mingle with despair. "What do you know about my life? You always get everything," I blurted out before I could stop myself. The words hung in the air, heavy like an anchor dragging me deeper into the abyss. Her smile faltered, and for a fleeting moment I saw surprise flicker in her eyes. "What do you mean, you act like you had it bad?" she retorted, defensiveness coating her words like steel armor. "You have mom and dad's support always." "Support?" I scoffed, disbelief lacing my voice. "I have always played the role of the dependable one. I am the good child, remember, but where is my reward?" My voice cracked, pain lancing through me like a sharp knife. The room fell eerily silent. My parents paused in their conversation and a ripple of confusion cut through the laughter. I could feel their eyes on me, scrutinizing, judging. You're being dramatic, my sister dismissed, pulling back, her hands on her hips like a judge passing down a sentence. This is not about you, isn't it? I snapped, my frustration bursting forth in a torrent. You wore that entitlement like a badge while I am nothing but an afterthought. In that car, I gestured wildly toward the door, it embodies all the years of being overlooked. You think I have it easy just because I play nice? Whoa, is someone throwing a tantrum? My brother shouted as he came back inside, more jubilant than ever. You need to chill, it's just a car. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, mingling with humiliation. My breath quickened. It's not just a car, it symbolizes favoritism and everyone knows it. My voice began to waver, but I was too deep in the moment, too fueled by my own hurt. I think you should just be happy for those who deserve it, my mother interjected, her voice sharp and unforgiving, cutting through the tension like an unexpected thunderclap. Deserve it. I felt my chest rise and fall with rage, my hands trembling as I fought to maintain composure. You mean those who are favored, right? I am tired of this family choosing sides. Gasps echoed around the room. It was as if I had dropped a bomb in their lap. My heart raced. A shadow of awkwardness settled like a heavy cloud in the air. I could feel my own vulnerabilities exposed, bare in front of everyone. Don't act like a spoiled child, my father reprimanded, disappointment thick in his tone as if I had disappointed the very ground we stood upon. You're an adult now, you need to act like it. The words struck deep, hitting me where it hurt the most. I'd always felt like the invisible daughter, the one who would melt into the background rather than take center stage. Crying at their unfairness only seemed to widen the chasm that separated me. I went pale, my mind racing. Everything I felt was crystal clear now. I wasn't just a secondary character in a story happening to others. I was ready to be the author of my own tale. I am no longer going to be the good child who holds back, I whispered aloud, but it felt like a thunderous declaration. I will no longer stand by, waiting for scraps of love. If you all want to play favorites, fine, you won't see me begging for approval ever again. I don't need your approval, I added, my voice strong and steady, echoing strongly against the extravagant walls that once felt familiar. I turned around, my shoulder brushing against my horrified brother. For the first time, I felt lighter somehow, an ember igniting the ashes of my heart. I rushed toward the door, my footsteps firm and unapologetic, leaving the echoes of my family behind. I flung the door open and stepped out, letting the cool evening air wash over me like a refreshing balm. I could not take another second of the shallow smiles and hollow compliments. I needed space, and as I closed the door behind me, I realized I was closing a chapter I never wanted to be in. But with each step I took away from that house, the resolve within me solidified. It was time to take control of my life, to craft the narrative I wanted. A different life awaited me, one where I no longer settled for being an afterthought. I had a mission now, a determination to carve my path. I would show them everything they had ignored. In that electrifying moment, my silent promise surged within me, a vow that this was just the beginning of my quest for justice. I would rise from the ashes of this betrayal stronger than they'd ever imagined, and they would finally see my worth. With that, the weight of my shattered heart transformed into rocket fuel. The evening enveloped me, and I could hear laughter fading behind me, but my soul was ignited with new fervor. I took a deep breath, and in that air I felt something beautiful, the promise of vengeance. I would not just take control of my destiny, I would reclaim my freedom one way or another. As I walked away, heart pounding with adrenalized decision, the door behind me loomed large, closing off the familiar and the comfortable. But comfort had never truly belonged to me. With each step, I felt the power surging, cracks spreading through the old facade of family loyalty that had bound me. It was time to rewrite the story. The air was thick with an unspoken tension as I stepped into the living room of my parents' house, where the scattered remnants of my childhood lingered like old ghosts. Faded photographs hanging on the walls, their frames etched with warmth and a hint of disdain. My father sat in his oversized leather armchair, one that claimed its space like he claimed authority over our family, his newspaper crinkling loudly as he read about the stock market. My mother was perched nearby on the edge of a couch, flipping through a glossy magazine that featured luxury homes, eyeing each page with a fixation that betrayed both longing and entitlement. My sister was nowhere to be seen, probably off basking in the latest praise for her unearned accolades. The thought of her name brought a bitter taste to my mouth. I forced a smile onto my face, a tight expression that masked the fire burning within me. "Hey everyone," I said, my voice inflected cheerily, even though my heart felt heavy with the burden of secrets. My eyes locked onto my father, who barely glanced up before huffing with the slightest tilt of his head, acknowledging my presence but not much else. My mother, however, plastered a wide grin and waved. "Oh, sweetheart, you look so professional today." Her voice always had that pitch which danced between feigned enthusiasm and genuine surprise, as if she could hardly believe I had morphed into something they hadn't anticipated. Thanks, mother, I replied, unable to stop my eyes from rolling slightly. Professional. That word stung. It signified the countless hours I had poured into learning the ruthless business of real estate, while my sister had continued to bask in the soft glow of parental adoration. As I moved further into the room, my breath hitched in my throat. The family photo on the wall caught my eye, a frozen moment of us at the beach, sunlight glistening on our skin, my father with an arm draped possessively around my sister as if it signaled she was the only one worthy of his pride. I had always been in the background, unnoticed, a mere shadow encapsulated by their shared spotlight. Did I hear him say he was investing again? What a waste of money. You should have come to us first, my mother chimed, diving straight into the predictable disapproval, her eyes glistening with reproach. You know there is an art to saving, dear. I forced back the urge to lash out at her belittling tone. Actually, I did invest, mother, I said, my pulse quickening. I studied her carefully, gauging her reaction. In an old building, the one you and father used to own. The words rolled off my tongue, tinged with satisfaction at the surprise blooming in her eyes. I had contained my success under layers of secrecy, calculating each step until now when I was ready to reveal the truth. She blinked rapidly. That old thing? Her disbelief was palpable, as if I were a child again, trying to convince her I had grown muscles overnight. But in the heart of Harborview, mother, it's worth millions, I interrupted, my voice strong as I worked to control the tremor of my heart. I purchased it a year ago when you both were too busy fussing over her latest trophies. I pointed toward a small shelf nestled in the corner, overloaded with my sister's accolades. You did not notice because you never cared. The room dipped into an awkward silence, the sound of the ticking clock on the wall growing deafening. My father's eyes narrowed through the newspaper as he peeked over the top. What do you mean you bought it? Why did you do that? There was a threat of authority in his voice, but it wavered just enough to hint at surprise. The line of resentment was drawn where other family ambivalence usually lay. Because I could, and you both never believed I would amount to anything. My courage spiked then. I could feel my hands clenching at my sides, willing the rage bubbling inside to dissipate. All those times you praised her, while I tirelessly built my dreams in the dark. I was never going to wait for your approval to define my success. You chose her over me. I tried to keep my tone steady, but I felt the welling in my throat threaten to overwhelm me. A lump of betrayal I had fed for years. My mother's expression shifted as if the very weight of that truth had physically struck her. That's not true, Lee, she said, her voice faltering as if she was grappling for a lifeline. We always wanted you to succeed too. Succeed at what? Painting pretty pictures? I wanted more, I still want more. I could no longer temper the anger rising in my chest. The walls began to close in on me as adrenaline surged through my veins. I didn't need your approval then, and I do not need it now. You just never noticed what I was doing, did you? The intensity of my words hung in the air, sparking a silence thick enough to slice through. My father's brows furrowed into that familiar stern look I learned to dread, his mouth a tight line. You think you can just waltz in here and throw it in our faces? You think you understand the value of hard work when you've just taken from our past? I went pale. That primal rush of resentment clawed at my insides, but this time, armed with my success, it felt different. I took what was mine, what you both left to rot. The words slipped out, drenched in the venom of truth. I turned it into something that matters. The tension in the room was nearly unbearable. My mother's hands trembled as she grasped her magazine, the bright colors of the lavish homes on the pages blurring together in my vision. You have undermined your own family. Is that worth it? It was never about favor, it's about being seen. The flame within me surged again, and I racked my mind for all the ways I felt invisible to them. All those birthdays I spent alone, the tears I shed when you cheered for her but not for me. You mocked my dreams, dismissed my efforts. Guess who now owns the very building where you once sat as a family? My voice cracked slightly, but it empowered me instead of breaking me. Just then the door swung open, and my sister strolled in with her usual air of casual confidence, her lips curling in a secret bubble of laughter. She caught the tense atmosphere, and for a moment that laughter collapsed into a confused silence. What's going on? She asked innocently, surveying our strained expressions, her eyes flicking between the three of us. I could feel the smirk fading from her face as a realization seemed to seep into her awareness. Were you not just talking about that old building? What's this all about? The casual inquiry carried a weight of disbelief, as if she had waltzed into a scene from a play she hadn't auditioned for. I just acquired it, I said, a defiance coursing through my veins. I could see her posture shift, tension enveloping her pretty face. I am the owner now. How proud are you, sister? Expressions shifted as I watched her pale, the realization that she spent years basking in recognition while I flourished in the shadows dawning upon her. Wait, you can't be serious, she finally stammered, shocked. You bought that, but it's ours. No, it was a part of our family. I could see my father's jaw clench, and my mother's eyes darted back and forth between us as shock turned into disapproval. I merely took back what I had worked for. You want the official family story, but I am drawing the lines here right now. I countered, the words spilling out, emboldened by a mix of triumph and bitterness. We're family, my sister said, taking a step towards me, but I stepped back, the distance between us suddenly feeling vast. Family? You mean the family that has cast me aside? You were highlighted, praised for doing nothing. I poured my energy into creating, while you strutted around with that smug glow of validation. The words dripped with bitterness and truth, coiling around the silence like thick, oppressing smoke. Lee, please, this is so unfair, she argued desperately, her voice a mix of pleading and disbelief, but I could see the cracks in her composure forming. Unfair? What's unfair is the years I spent invisible to you all. You never appreciated what I did because I did it behind your back. I learned from the shadows. And now you both had better recognize me. I felt exhilarated, angry, and powerful all at once, as if I was finally standing at the helm of my narrative instead of remaining an afterthought. You are being irrational, my father shot back, his frustration unraveling at the seams. You think this is some grand victory, you think you can just undermine all we built. The empire you built around one child, I said fiercely, a single bead of sweat trickling down my back. The air felt charged, crackling with intensity. Not anymore. I've taken back my rightful place. Suddenly, the tension crescendoed, and I turned toward the door with all the strength I could muster. But don't worry, I will be civil, you still do not have to leave my buildings. I grasped the doorknob, filled with a mix of remorse and satisfaction, just as another wave of recognition washed over my sister's face. Wait, my sister's voice rang out, scattering the smoldering anger like ashes in the wind. What are you saying? I paused, my hand frozen on the doorknob, sensing the power shift. I am saying you cannot take your privilege for granted anymore. I threw open the door, storming out into the crisp evening air, leaving behind a room full of mounting chaos. My heart raced as plots of revenge and reclamation unfolded in my mind like building blueprints. They would all have to face the reality of my presence, my power. My journey had only begun. A thunderstorm of atmosphere followed as I left, a door slamming shut, a moment suspended in time, and a deep-seated urgency for what was to come, a reckoning shared, a battle for the respect I had always craved and would no longer bend to their will. The air buzzed with uncertainty and betrayal behind me, a veil of silence enveloping the aftermath. I stepped into the night, feeling the adrenaline coursing through my veins, excitement mixing with a cold determination. There was no turning back now, the air was thick with anticipation. As I entered the restaurant, an upscale Italian place with dim lighting and the distinct aroma of garlic and herbs swirling through the air. My heart raced in tandem with the beat of the music echoing off the rustic brick walls. Elegantly set tables flickered with candlelight, and the soft clinking of glasses filled with expensive wine created an oddly comforting ambience that belied the storm brewing in my chest. I wore a stunning designer dress, a deep navy blue that hugged my curves while draping elegantly at the hem. I had paired it with gold jewelry that sparkled slightly as I moved, and I felt every bit the powerful woman I had worked so hard to become. I spotted my family in the corner booth, laughing and sharing stories just like old times. How naive they were to think I would let them keep pretending everything was perfectly fine. I strode over with an air of confidence, each step more determined than the last, feeling the weight of their eyes on me. I wanted them to know I wasn't the same girl they had once belittled and dismissed. I wanted them to see the success story I had become. My mother's laughter suddenly stilled as I approached, her eyes widening in disbelief. My father froze mid-sentence, mouth agape. My sister and brother exchanged bewildered glances, frozen like deer caught in headlights. I reveled in the power of that moment. The silence that enveloped the table spoke volumes. Good evening, I said, my voice smooth and steady, radiating authority. I hope you have been enjoying your evening. I have something to share that might make it even more interesting. Their expressions shifted slowly from shock to a mix of denial and suspicion. My sister was the first to recover, her brows knitting into a frown. What do you mean, interesting? We're busy right now. Oh, I'm sure a manila envelope filled with the details of my successful bidding on your worthless properties will pique your interest, I replied coolly, letting the words hit the air like thunder. Properties? My brother echoed, his voice cracking slightly. What are you talking about? I could feel the smirk threatening to creep across my face but held it back. I wanted to sting them, to really drive my point home. Yes, the buildings you deemed unworthy of your attention. The ones you constantly mocked me for wanting to acquire. The ones you laughed about when I decided to pursue them. I pulled out a glossy brochure that I had printed earlier, detailed images and descriptions showcasing the renovations I had planned. I am now the proud owner of all four. The color drained from their faces, leaving them ghostly pale. My mother's mouth fell open and my brother shook his head in disbelief. You cannot be serious. I am as serious as your favoritism and the manipulation you employed to keep me out of the family business. My voice held a newfound strength, rising with each word as I pushed the small stack of papers across the table towards them. I offered more than any of you ever thought I could, because while you all assumed I would crumble under the pressure, I thrived. And now here I am, standing before you, having accomplished what none of you believed possible. I don't believe it. My mother shouted, her voice strained. You don't have the money. How could you possibly afford this? You have always been the burden we had to carry. She blinked rapidly, as if her ignorance might somehow render my triumph meaningless. Oh, really? I leaned back slightly, allowing the mockery to seep into my tone. Let's talk about money, shall we? I secured a loan of $2 million from a private investor, and I intend to transform those buildings into luxury condos, something I know you will never ever do. You've turned your backs on me so many times, but it looks like I am the one who has proven to be more resourceful. I watched their expressions morph from disbelief to resentment, their throats tightening as they struggled to comprehend the new reality confronting them. You think this makes you better than us? My sister said, her voice dripping with contempt. You think this was a victory? You have only succeeded at making a fool of yourself. I chuckled softly, bitterness stirred within me like a tempest. Oh, dear sister, this is far from a fool's errand. This is my chance to prove that your favoritism, your condescension, means nothing in the grand scheme of success. You can't cut me out because I've cut you off with my achievements. I leaned forward, watching the realization seep into their expressions, followed by the anger they could no longer mask. My father finally chose to speak, but his words came out clipped. You don't understand how this works. Family should stick together. You are throwing everything away. Your actions are reckless. I couldn't help but let out a sharp laugh. Reckless? You know what's reckless? Writing me off when I was only trying to be a part of the family business. Every single job I took was belittled. Every attempt I made to show my potential was laughed at. You've coercively paved a road for my failure. But guess what? I've rewritten the rules. I'm no longer the weak link you all presumed I would stay forever. Their faces contorted as emotions clashed within them, anger, betrayal, and something else that felt like fear. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass, taking a long sip while trying to compose herself. The silence that followed felt palatial, stretching as if time had paused just for this confrontation. Is this how you repay us? My brother demanded, his voice trembling. By making a mockery of the family name, by flaunting what you have achieved in our faces? Flaunting? I shook my head, genuinely baffled. This isn't about flaunting anything. It is time for you all to see that the family name you hold so tightly lost its worth the moment you chose to cut me out. And now you will take a backseat as I drive this family and its legacy toward success. This could still lead to something great if we work together, Lee, my mother said, her voice softer now, a hint of desperation creeping in. You don't have to do this alone. Why would I want to team up with the very people who dismissed me? I felt my heart quicken, the pulse of resentment and empowerment coursing through my veins. Join together as you whisper lies behind my back, as you all deem me unworthy of family support. I refuse to let you drag me down again. I've built my life from the ground up, starting from nothing while you were all busy enjoying the privileges I was denied. I don't need your validation to know I am enough. Tension crackled like static in the air, drowning out the restaurant's soft chatter and the clinking of dishes. I could see my mother's lip quivering, the truth cutting deeper than I had anticipated. My brother fidgeted, anxious, the realization stark among his expressions. The balance of power had shifted irreparably. Lee, my sister began, her voice faltering. You don't know what you're doing. You think you can just dismiss us. We are still your family. And you fail to treat me like one. I interrupted, my words cutting through her plea like a dagger. This isn't my fault, it's yours. You chose to leave me out of everything while cradling my brother, my sister, like the golden children. Suddenly my phone buzzed in my purse, a sharp sound in the growing tension. I glanced down at the screen, my heart leaping, an incoming message from a close friend, updating me about the renovations scheduled to start soon. I felt my determination swell even amidst the chaos surrounding me. You can call me whatever you like, but I am no longer that unnoticed, silenced child you once mocked. I am here, I have arrived, and you will have to reckon with that. Their faces fell as the truth struck a chord. I leaned back, letting a satisfied grin dance across my lips, letting them stew in the aftermath of this confrontation. My brother, with frustration edged into his voice, demanded, What do you expect from us now? A fairy tale where we all just forgive and forget? You think this will change anything? A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Forgiveness is not on the menu. You have all underestimated me for far too long. I could see the panic layer onto their features, the desperation seep into their attempts at maintaining poise. The tension in the air hung like an invisible thread, ready to snap. As I felt my pulse racing with triumph, every deep breath reinforced my resolve. I'll take my properties, my dreams, and my life forward without your shadow looming over me, I declared firmly, rising from my seat, the weight of the conversation lingering heavy around us. But this isn't just about revenge. This is about reclaiming my life from the claws of your favoritism. With one last glance, I turned toward the exit, feeling their stares heavy on my back, mouth still agape as they processed the enormity of what had just transpired. Just as I reached the door, a sudden shout broke through the tension. You will regret this. I paused, the weight of the moment sinking in as I realized that the battle was only beginning. My heart pounded violently, but it wasn't fear that gripped me, it was empowerment. I was no longer their victim. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I was ready for battle. With one final breath of resolve, I pushed the heavy door open and stepped into the cool evening, ready to embrace the future. The echoes of their disbelief faded behind me, replaced by a stirring sense of freedom. The road ahead was laden with challenges, but I knew in my heart I would confront them head on. After all, I was in control now the moment my parents stepped through the grand entrance of the luxury property I had worked so hard to acquire. A sweeping sense of liberation surged through me. I had waited years for this moment, years filled with doubt, pain, and the cold sting of their favoritism toward my siblings. They had spent so long treating me like an afterthought, as if I were merely a shadow in their perfectly crafted family narrative. But now it was time for me to reclaim my story. The polished marble floors gleamed under the soft, golden chandeliers, casting light onto the spacious foyer decked in shades of elegant white and silver. Each corner of this newly built luxury residence glimmered with sophistication, a result of countless hours of determination and hard work, a journey full of sleepless nights and sleepless days. I paused to take in the moment, my heart racing with anticipation. I could feel the shadows of the past creeping up behind me, but they no longer held power over me. Not anymore. As my parents walked in, I noticed their eyes widen, taking in the carefully designed open layout that flowed seamlessly from room to room. There was an awkwardness in the air as they hesitated, glancing at each other before their smiles faltered. Their shock felt palpable, and I reveled in every second. I knew they had expected me to fail, to give up like they had always presumed I would. My father's smug superiority had always overshadowed my dreams, while my mother's dismissive comments made it clear I was never the favorite. But standing here in this moment, I wore my triumph like a cloak. "Lee, this is incredible," my father finally managed, his voice strained as if forced through a gritted jaw. There was no denying the disbelief that lurked beneath his forced admiration. "It's quite something," my mother echoed, her eyes darting across the room. "You've outdone yourself." She attempted to puff up her voice, injecting a hint of recognition, yet it felt hollow. I couldn't help but smirk, the satisfaction bubbling beneath my skin. "You have no idea how hard I worked for this," I said, letting the words hang in the air like invisible smoke. "Every late night, every dollar invested, every moment of doubt I silenced, it all led to this. I'm finally much more than the black sheep you thought I was." My sister and brother lingered in the background, their expressions overshadowed by their parents' sudden awe. I caught my brother attempting to mask his jealousy, while my sister wore a proud smile that seemed a tad too forced. I had worked hard to overcome the whispers they once shared, each voice echoing some cruel taunt of favoritism. I could not afford to be a second choice any longer. I wanted them all to see me for who I truly was, a fierce competitor in a family full of complacency. "Lee, maybe we can talk about plans," my mother said, her tone slipping into that familiar manipulative pitch as she tried to gauge her next move. It was a plea not just for understanding but for her to regain some level of control, as if the reins could be pulled back. "You know how your father and I are always there to support you." I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, the desperate calculations of how to reclaim the lost ground. Support? Had they ever really supported me? Or was it just a facade, a convenient way to appear dutiful while raking in the benefits of my siblings' achievements? My heart raced again, but this time with indignation. Did they not grasp the severity of their actions? Did they truly think they could waltz back in after all the years of emotional neglect? "Support?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "You mean the years spent dismissing my dreams, assigning me to the role of the forgotten child? How you constantly reminded me that I was the leftover when compared to my sister's perfect grades and my brother's little league trophies? It took every fiber of my being to rise above that, and honestly, I learned all of it without your so-called support." Their expressions splintered like fragile glass, my mother's mouth went pale, and my father's brow furrowed deeply as if my words struck him unexpectedly. I could see the realization start to wash over their faces, a blend of regret and an uncomfortable acceptance of their past failures. "Lee, that's unfair," my brother suddenly chimed in, trying to cut through the tension. "You're blowing this out of proportion, we all care about you." But it was too late, the facade had crumbled and I would no longer make allowances for shallow reassurances. "I don't need your pity," I snapped back. "This isn't about you feeling guilty for your neglect or trying to smooth over years of favoritism with empty words. No, this moment is about acknowledgement. The fact that I did this without your approval and your financial backing," my father interjected, now narrowing his eyes. "You act like we turned our back on you. We didn't even know you were pursuing this until it was too late." Perhaps that's because I didn't want to waste my breath trying to convince you to believe in my dreams. I spat back, the oppressive weight of frustration rising in my throat. Instead of being a family, your expectations shrouded me like a dark cloud. You never saw beyond your favorites, and that's what kept me in the shadows. A heavy silence fell over us, punctuated only by the distant sound of footsteps echoing through the grand halls, reminiscent of our long-gone family dinners when laughter flowed freely. The dining table still felt inflated by unfulfilled expectations, threatened by aspirations either trampled or ignored. The irony that I had transformed this empty shell into a symbol of my success almost felt unreal, yet here we were, trapped in a moment of confrontation. If you think you can just hold this over us and expect us to beg for your forgiveness, my mother asserted, her tone icier now, you are mistaken. We are still your parents and we deserve respect. Respect for what? I laughed, a hollow sound that reverberated in the opulent space. For crafting a legacy of favoritism, for mistaking value for lineage. You had the chance to lift me up, to see me for what I could become, but you chose them over me. Their faces fell again and I could sense the tightening of their jaws. The churning emotions within me felt like boiling lava ready to erupt. But look at what I've built and look at what you pushed away. This place is not just a property. It's the very essence of my resilience and determination, and I'm proud to present it to you. The confrontation echoed louder than the minimalist decor surrounding us. I could taste the mingled bitterness and bitterness on my tongue, mingling with the smell of fresh paint and new beginnings. I couldn't remember the last time I felt both liberated and weighed down by my past. Think this puts you any higher on the pedestal than me, my sister piped in, defensive and small. We're still family. You have no right to act all superior now because of some house. What about at the family gatherings, our moments? Moments, I laughed again, my heart racing. What moments? The ones where I felt invisible, or the ones where I incessantly tried to prove my worth? Those moments did not matter to you. My mother's voice wavered as she attempted to regain composure. This is still a home, Lee. We only want what is best for you. Home, I echoed, the syllables slicing through the air. Home was never felt like a home for me. It was always about status symbols. It was always about my siblings and their accomplishments. I had to leave to find my worth. I never wanted you to feel like you couldn't come to us. My father's voice rose, but it was too late. Regret was no longer an option. He had already brought up walls far too high to climb. Not once did you care to ask, I shot back. And now here you are walking through the doors of success I carved for myself, pretending like this is just some family tour. No, you'll see the consequences of your actions today. Today you shall face the very reality you ignored. I knew my voice cracked, but I held my ground. I turned toward the expansive windows that framed the ocean sunset. Vibrant colors cascaded the horizon in a breathtaking display. This beauty, this view, it was as far from their favored portrayals of a perfect family as could be. I felt liberated, and yet I was still a prisoner of their narrative until now. Let's move on to the next room, I said with a newfound resolve, gesturing toward the doorway leading into the living area. I want you to see the kitchen where endless family meals were meant to be had, until they became formative lessons of familial rejection. My parents exchanged uneasy glances, and my siblings shuffled behind them, their footsteps hesitant. As we entered the airy kitchen, the smell of fresh pastries filled the air. It was an ode to my effort and resilience, reflecting not just the space but the life I had built with my own two hands. How do you feel when you visit your favorite Italian restaurant? I probed, letting the question weigh heavy in the room. Is it still just a facade to you? Or do you finally recognize I've become the person you thought I couldn't be? I don't know if it has to be like this, my mother whispered, her shoulders slumping as if crushed by the weight of reality. Just what, you thought I would always be your backup plan? I interrupted, sensing our dynamic shifting even further. This wasn't just some phase. Every step I took toward this success was a step away from you. No one spoke for a moment, and my heart raced as I absorbed their silence. I had become a mirror reflecting their flaws, an uncomfortable truth they had long refrained from facing while basking in misplaced favoritism. I took a deep breath, feeling the surge of power swell inside me. This was it. This was the moment I changed everything. You've lost your chance to dictate my worth, I pronounced, my voice steady and fierce. Now you are here to see what you neglected for so long. With every word, I felt a part of me liberate. No longer could they dismiss me or downplay my success. I would reclaim this narrative, and they would stand witness to my journey, forced to reckon with every word they had ever cast like stones against me. Just as a sense of triumph fluttered within me, I heard a muffled gasp behind me. My eyes darted to my brother, who stood frozen in the doorframe, his eyes wide. What do you mean by this? He asked, dread creeping into his voice. You didn't call us here to just scold us, did you? Scold you. I echoed, a knowing smile creeping upon my lips. No, dear brother, there's something even bigger to reveal amidst all of this. As I turned to meet my parents' stunned expressions, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Perhaps this moment wouldn't be as simple as I had once thought. Perhaps my revelations were only just beginning. What followed next would shift everything yet again. With my heartbeat echoing in my ears and a mockingly sweet satisfaction in my chest, I prepared to unveil the final piece of this intricate puzzle. Everything was about to change once more, and they had no idea what was coming.